Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to get started. I'd like to introduce Dr. Tiffany Troxler, my awesome boss. She's going to start us all off today. Tiffany.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. As Alyssa said, my name is Tiffany Troxler. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Earth and Environment here at Florida International University. And I'm also the Director of Science for the Sea Level Solutions Center in the Institute of Environment that's sponsoring and hosting this, this event today. And this is in coordination with a larger effort on dark skies and light pollution initiated by Miami-Dade County under the leadership of one of our colleagues at the Sierra Club. Thanks for joining. So it's there have been a number of really wonderful events, and we're excited to continue that initiative with our webinar today. So thank you so much for joining, and Alyssa will introduce the speakers. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Tiffany. So my name is Alyssa Hernandez. I'm an assistant programs coordinator under Tiffany at the Sea Level Solutions Center, FIU's Institute of Environment. And today we have a great panel. We have Alejandro Sánchez de Miguel. He's from the International Dark Skies Association and the University of Exeter. He's also from Spain, so let's give him a warm welcome. We also have Philip Stoddard, and he's from FIU as well. He is also part of the Institute of Environment and the College of Arts, Science, and Education. And lastly, we have Leanne Hauptman, and she is with Miami-Dade County's Sea Turtles Conservation Program. So warm welcome to all of you. Thank you so much for helping us teach the public on the issues of light pollution, but also the benefits of the dark skies. So we are gonna see, let's see if we have our poll ready. So we had a little poll issue, but that's okay. If the poll comes up, we might launch it later on. So we'll actually already get started with our presentations. I'll quickly show you our agenda for today. We first have Alejandro, then we have Philip, and then we have Leanne. And then we'll launch a how did we do poll. We'd like to see how we did in teaching you all this fun stuff. And then we'll open up a panel Q&A session. So the way that this Zoom works is there's a Q&A feature, a Q&A button, and you can submit any questions that you have throughout the entirety of the program. And then at the panelist Q&A session, we will answer these questions. Hopefully we can get to all of them. And then we'll just close off and wrapping up by 1. Alrighty, so I am going to unshare my screen, and Alejandro, you can share yours and take it away.
Okay, let's see. Well, thank you very much for inviting me. First, I have added the credits of the presentation also to my colleague Kira Sapia. Because I took some of the slides from a presentation that we have made together. And first, the title of this talk was going to be Walking Under the Night Sky and the Light Pollution. But the light pollution is in the night sky, so I remove it. And then I thought that in reality what we do is we live under the night sky, as the same as we live during the day sky. I'm involved in all kinds of light pollution issues. So I made research at the University of Exeter. I belong to the board of directors of the International Dark Sky Association, but also I started and still collaborating with the Universidad Complutense de Madrid. I belong to the network of Spanish light pollution research in Spain, and also to the association, the local association of light pollution in Spain, is CELFOS. In this presentation, I would like to introduce you a bit the topic of the light pollution on some of my work. And the thing is that everybody knows this picture. This was one of the pictures taken from the Apollo missions, and changed the view of the world. No, how we started to care about the world. But this was a daylight picture, yeah? And the problem is that we are daylight creatures. We didn't start like that. We evolved from nocturnal animals, but we are daylight creatures. But if we care about the world during the day, the question is why usually don't care about the world at night. And these other pictures is the equivalent. Now is the first picture at night of the whole Earth taking. This was not by human, was by Starship, the Rosetta Starship. So was even from a probe that was not even orbiting the Earth. It was in the way to a comet. And still nearly one of the few pictures that we have of the whole Earth at night on the visible. When we try to go at night and see the sky, we don't see things like this. First, because it's a picture, so we can integrate more light into the camera. But also because the light pollution enables us to see this. No? This picture, I took it in Easter Island, in one of the most remote places on Earth. And we couldn't see any light pollution, except for a few lights that were reflecting on a cloud very, very, very far. But it's really, really tough to get rid of the light pollution. For example, here, this picture that where we can see a lot of stars in the top part of the picture. And in the bottom part, we see all packed of lights. And this picture was taken from an airplane in the middle of the Atlantic, flying from where I live in Granada in Spain to my work in the UK. And all this is the coast of France. And you can see there's lights everywhere. It's true that I was flying higher than a migrating bird will do it, but you can see also there is a lot of lights in the sea, no, from the boats. So it's really tough to get rid of the light pollution. And where I live is in Granada. Even if I work for a UK university, we have this observatory. And if we look to the mountain on the right, we cannot see nearly no light pollution. We can see Orion very well there, the Pleiades. But when we look to the other direction, we see the Granada. And behind Granada, we can see Malaga, that is over 200 kilometers from Granada. So light pollution really gets very far, very, very far. And the thing is that for many decades, the researchers, we are saying the problems that there is with light pollution. The problem indeed is that even if we think the light pollution is a new topic, a lot of the research was made in the early 20th century and the mid 20th century. And that's a problem because many of these topics are no longer a hot topic, no? Because the electricity was like the new thing and that made the cities much more bright. And well, sometimes we have this problem, no? The light is something that we are too used to have around. And we also think that really impacts the health of humans. No, it's a tough part. I collaborate with epidemiologists in this topic, but really we know light really affects our hormonal system as in other species, and we have to care about light pollution. It's a pollution. It's not something annoying. It's a pollution. And I'm sure they're going to talk about this later, but I only want you to think that light pollution goes very, very far. Yeah, and when we see the images from the sky, we see mainly the lights, no? But first, this image is fake. The real image is in black and white. The real images that we see of the Earth at night are in black and white, although we are trying to make the first atlas in color. This is one of the early stages that we have for Europe. It's very important to use the raw data, not the JPEGs. And we are trying to create also, we have a sample from our citizen science program with help from NASA on the outreach part and the communication part, where our volunteers mapped large parts of Florida. And how our citizen science project works is the people see the images, tag them, then locate them, and finally we georeference them. And so they georeference them and we have a proper map. We started with this kind of apps, and we were very lucky because NASA liked our citizen science project, and ESA too, the European Space Agency, and we appeared on the media. And at that time we were very, very lucky, but now we are not so lucky, but we still have a lot of images to locate. So if you have the chance, click in, go to this web page so you can collaborate with our project. But the problem is that the light pollution, we know that's growing quite fast. In our last paper, we knew that it was growing at the rate of 2.2% per year, but that's not considering that these satellites are colorblind. And that's why we are working in doing these color maps. But one of the problems that we have is we don't have yet enough research in all the topics. Now in ecology, we have, but first of all, in this image of New York, I wonder, first of all, if there is some patterns. No, I think I see how Manhattan is more yellowish and will match with the area that is more white people, but the area of the Bronx that is more Hispanic looks more, there is more blue light, no? And there is a lot of cultural effects, like border effects. Here, Spain, Portugal, India, Pakistan, in Israel, Jordania, Syria. There's a lot of topics very interesting, no? And I wanted to show you to end some of the images that I did. I prepared today for you. This is Cuba, that is very close to you. This is San Juan de Puerto Rico. This is a present for a friend that is from there. And this is you, University of Florida in Spanish. And I will be happy to answer your questions. The future for us is try to automatize many of these things using artificial intelligence, and obviously with the help of NASA, no? Because without the astronauts, we will not be able to do any of this. And thank you very much. And I think this is the time that I have for you.
Thank you so much, Alejandro. That's an awesome intro to all the issues and benefits as well. We now have our poll ready. So before we jump into the environmental aspects, I want to get a feel for what kind of audience we have today. So I'll be launching the poll now, and I'll walk you all through it right here. So you should see a poll as a pop-up window on your screen. And the first question reads, I am a student or non-student. Number 2, the type of business where I work is private sector, government, nonprofit, self-employed, I am not working. Number 3, what are the 3 most important things that determine your quality of life? So this question, you'll select 3 answers. We have health and happiness, family and friends, learning and education, work-life balance, good pay or job, and a personal favorite of mine, being outdoors and connecting with nature. Number 4, you'd also select 3 choices. What are the 3 most important concerns you have about impacts of climate change? So we have increasing heat and extreme heat, increasing threat from flooding and sea level rise, increasing intensity of storms and storm surge, exacerbation of social inequities, impacts to property and property value, impacts on community, family and friends, and public health, impacts to natural habitats and wildlife, and lack of awareness or no action to address it. And finally, applying science to make proper decisions for addressing these climate change issues. And then our last question, number 5, what do you think are the 3 highest priority initiatives or actions that can be done to reduce the impacts of climate change, as well as improve your quality of life? So here we have increased use of renewable energy, improve water management, financing projects to reduce climate change impacts, increasing city and community initiatives that support household activities like composting and planting more trees, increase city and community green infrastructure initiatives. So this is infrastructure specific. We also have infrastructure and property improvements in general, updating codes and planning based on the best available science. That's put twice, which is fine. You can pick either or. Supporting low wealth communities and increased community awareness and education. We have 65%. I'll give you another 30 seconds and then I'll quickly share the results so you can take a look at it. And then we'll move on to our environmental segment. Okay, awesome. I'm going to stop the poll and I'll share the results. So we have mostly non-students, but some students as well, and a range of everyone working in different sectors, mostly the government and nonprofit areas, health and happiness, family and friends, and being outdoors, connecting with nature take the lead on number 3. Then for the most important concerns you have about climate change impacts, it's impacts on natural habitats and wildlife, as well as the increasing heat, which we're pretty aware of here in Miami, and the increased intensity of storms. And for number 5, increased use of renewable energy, 94%, that's great to see, as well as green infrastructure initiatives and financing projects. So thank you so much. With that, we are going to move on to Phil. He is going to talk to us today. Let me just stop sharing my screen. Phil, you can take it away. Oh, you're muted, Phil.
Okay, will you give me back? There we go. I'm good. Okay, so you can see my background screen here. And I'll move this way and you can see, anybody recognize the constellation? You should, that's Orion there. You see Orion's belt and whatever that little thing is hanging down, I guess his sword. And so this was taken, this dark picture here was taken over in the Big Cypress Preserve. Went out to see the meteor shower one night. Came home and then took the same picture from my front yard in South Miami. And that's the gray one here. And just, what a difference it makes being in the center of the peninsula versus being over on the city side of the peninsula. Just, I was going to say it's like night and day, and it pretty much is. We've got, very serious light pollution here in Miami. So stargazing and professional light astronomy are both compromised by urban light pollution, but it also messes a lot with the natural world and even human health because we're part of the natural world. And as Alejandro Sánchez mentioned to you, light pollution even has a nerdy science name. We call it artificial light at night, ALAN, or ALAN for short. And ALAN has been identified as a key driver of insect population declines, decline in pollination, increase in mosquito-borne diseases, bird mortality, sea turtle hatching loss, which Leanne Hauptman will talk to us more about in a minute, and even tree mortality. I mean, it's a biggie. Allen, artificial light at night, disturbs the electric fish that I studied for 30 years. These are wild fish. They're nocturnal. It's why they make electricity, is to help them see and communicate at night. But even in the field, when the moon comes up, all the fish in the stream go and hide because the night herons line up along the stream. Same thing with kangaroo rats out in the desert. When the moon comes up, the kangaroo rats go and hide so the owls can't see them. Animals are exquisitely sensitive to light. Now, what if the lights get left on all night? That's a serious problem. The fish I studied simply won't breed when that happens. It just shuts them down. So, we have to sort of be cognizant of this. Migrating birds. Somebody asked about what happens to migrating birds. Great question. They use a star compass to orient. And if the sky glows, the birds can't see the stars that they need to be able to orient properly. The other thing that birds do is they fly towards continuous lights. So those slow flashing red lights on radio towers, TV towers, cause bird strikes. The birds see those and they orient towards them and crash right into them, breaks their necks. Interestingly, the quick, fast little strobes that they're moving towards now, they're better. Birds don't orient to those. Insects fly at a fixed angle to the moon or sun. So let's think about how this works. So I want you to imagine you're standing out in the front yard and there's a tree in your yard. And I want you to orient. Imagine that tree is well, let's first of all think about the moon. The moon was full last night. So supposing the moon rose a little bit in the southeast, or probably in the east, this being after the equinox. So the moon rose in the east, and if I wanted to walk south, I could put the moon at my right and walk south. And for the next hour or two, the moon's in the same place, just keeping the moon, on my left. Keeping the moon on my left, I go south. Keeping the moon on my right, I go north. And supposing I want to go southeast, well, then I put the moon sort of at a 45-degree angle to my right. And then if I keep the moon at that angle, I walk in a straight line. Now, what happens if that moon is a fixed light in my yard? Well, if I walk at a fixed angle to that, 45 degrees, say, I'm going to spiral right in until I whack my nose on it. And that's exactly what insects do. You've seen insects spiraling into the porch light or street light. They're treating it like the moon. They're trying to fly at a fixed angle, and instead they wind up crashing into it. If the light's hot, they get singed. At the very least, they waste all their time banging into the light instead of doing what things they need to be doing. And so artificial light has been associated with the insect decline. In Europe, they figured that artificial lights have resulted in about a 30% insect loss of all the insects. So it's a big deal. Sorry, 40%. I said 30. It's 40. Actually, 40% attributed to artificial lights. Lights run our, regulate our circadian rhythms. They synchronize our internal biological clock to the outside world. So all living cells have circadian rhythms, and the clock is reset every day to keep it in sync with the changing day length. Though otherwise, it would be hard to do this. So a pulse of light anywhere from 2 o'clock in the morning to dawn resets the clock of diurnal animals. We could get a little bit more into the nocturnal animals, are a little bit different, but basically still respond. So the synchrony of vertebrate cells is mediated by typically a pigment in the retina called cryptochrome that's sensitive to the blue spectrum. This is one of the reasons why if you become blind, you should still keep the eyes in your head. Don't have them removed. Because even if you can't form an image, the receptors that see blue light with cryptochrome are still there and they're still synchronizing your clock. So hang on to those eyes even if you can't see through them. But it's the blue spectrum, okay? That's what's critical. So when you get up, I'm going to patent something one day. It's a refrigerator light that doesn't have any blue in the spectrum, so that I can get up and go to the fridge and get myself something at night to drink without resetting my clock. Flowering plants, they also are sensitive to light, but exactly the opposite. Instead of the blue spectrum, flowering plants attend to the red spectrum. So that's what gets them synchronized. And in fact, flowering trees don't flower if they're exposed to continuous light with the red spectrum at night. In the Rhodes neighborhood of Miami, there were street lights that were installed, and all the Royal Poinciana stopped blooming. And finally, just a few years ago, they put in new street lights, and they lowered the height of the heads, and they had the light shining down, and the trees started blooming again for the first time in recent memory. Makes a big deal. Light pollution affects hormonal cycles, particularly melatonin, and it downregulates your immune system. And this has been shown, in fact, to make birds more vulnerable to West Nile virus. If they're exposed to artificial light at night, even a street light, a porch light, and they get bitten by a mosquito that has West Nile, they get a worse case of West Nile virus, higher mortality. In addition, artificial light at night extends the biting time for mosquitoes. So Aedes aegypti, our local invasive mosquito that carries dengue, Zika, chikungunya, yellow fever, is most active in the late afternoon for about an hour after sunset. When the lights are on, they stay active. And if you go out to an outdoor restaurant, of course, there's lighting, the mosquitoes will keep on biting you. Dim evening lighting even extends the incidence of West Nile virus. If it's really bright, the Culex mosquitoes don't want to be active, but if the lighting is dim, makes them more active, and you get more West Nile transmission. I got West Nile virus this year, actually in November. So I'm a believer. But they find that they put out sentinel chickens to check for West Nile virus. And if there's dim light at night, the chickens get more West Nile. I'm working on nocturnal activity in mosquitoes. And turns out that if there's a little bit of light around, you can select for mosquitoes that are active at night. And then what that does is it shifts the period of time in which people can get mosquito-borne diseases. So it has human health consequences there as well, sort of indirectly as well as directly. I talked about the orientation problem that insects have, but it also extends the crepuscular activity. Artificial light extends the crepuscular activity longer into the night, particularly into the colder hours when the temperatures begin to drop. So the insects are out because of the light, but they're less agile and they can't escape their predators as easily, so they get eaten better. And something you can see, in fact, is if you look on your window screen, say in your kitchen window, the brown anoles, the little Caribbean lizards we have here, they will feed all night long on the window screens, just like the geckos. If there's artificial light, they shift their schedule and they eat the bugs. Aquatic insects like mayflies, if there's artificial light, they will see the reflection of the light and think it's water. So they'll fly down and lay their eggs on any light surface. Bioluminescent species like light fireflies and headlight beetles, they can't find their mates. It's terrible. And as insects go, so go the bats. Our favorite local bat is the Florida bonneted bat, the second largest bat in the country. They're endangered, and the reason they're endangered is they depend on large flying insects. And I just told you what we're doing to those. So large dark areas is a real help. It also helps if you don't spray insecticides. So what are the solutions? There's a good question, like, what can we do about this? Well, sort of at the individual scale, we can minimize the intensity of light. So one of the tricks is to use just the smallest amount of light that can do the job of being able to see what you need to see. And minimizing the duration of lights. You don't have to have the light on all at night. My favorite lights are the ones that kind of come on when you need them and go off when you don't need them. Motion activated is best. Particularly path lights. You walk on the path and the light turns on so you can see where you're stepping, and then when you go past, it turns off again. Besides, that way the bad guys can't see you. turning off the lights at critical times, bird migration, turtle nesting season, which has been done in some places. Whenever astronomers are looking at the sky, this is a huge problem at FIU. We built this great, observatory, and then the university starts adding lights. So they put lights into the atrium at the Graham Center that shine up right at the observatory. It's insane. They're now going to put lights all the way around the pond outside the library, and they're probably going to keep them on all night. So it's going to interfere with the insect life there. It's going to interfere with the fish, and it's going to interfere with the observatory again. They're planning to do this, so we need to protest this. They could do better. Shielding the lights. The lights pointing down is really important. I mentioned when they did that, it caused the trees to start blooming again in the Rhodes neighborhood. They do down lighting on coastal sidewalks in Broward County to reduce the spillage that's disorienting sea turtles. Baby sea turtles helps a lot. Other lights they turn off. Choosing the spectrum carefully for the right place. So insects don't see the red spectrum. So if you're trying to protect insect life, then shine your lights downwards and use a red spectrum, which they don't see. If you're trying to make sure your trees flower, then don't shine red light up at the trees, because that's going to interfere with their blooming cycles. Migrating birds, I told you, are attracted to slow flashes, even red slow flashes. So don't use those. Use a fast white flash. Planes see it even better, and the birds don't get killed. And then finally, dark skies ordinances. So when I was mayor of South Miami, which I was for 10 years, I wrote and got passed a dark skies ordinance in the city of South Miami. And it specifies the maximum light intensity that can spill from one property onto another. And so supporting those light ordinances, and in fact, where they exist, they're typically really enforced by citizens. People call and say, hey, my neighbor's light is shining in my window, I'm tired of this. And then they can call code enforcement. Code can come over with their little light meter and tell the neighbors, hey, you've got to deflect that light or turn it down. So, I mean, those are things we can do, and we should be doing them all over the world, not just in South Miami.
Thank you so much, Bill.
If there's any questions I didn't answer that people want, I'd be happy to take them at the end.
Awesome. You did answer some of the ones entered in the Q&A, so I was able to type in a summary of what you mentioned. Alrighty, and now we're going to welcome Leanne. So she is, like I mentioned, works for the Miami-Dade County Sea Turtle Conservation Program. So she's going to take us into sea turtles, which is exciting. Go ahead, Leanne. You can share your screen.
All right. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Leanne Hauptman, and I work for the Miami-Dade County Sea Turtle Conservation Program. So I'm going to focus a little bit on how artificial light impacts sea turtle nesting habitat and sea turtles here at Miami-Dade County. So just to start, a little bit about our program. So we are actually under Miami-Dade County Parks, Recreation, Open Spaces Department. So we are a county-run organization. We have a state-issued Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission permit to conduct all marine turtle activity in Miami-Dade County, and we have a permit holder who is the wonderful Laura Dell. So our program is responsible for marking, monitoring, gathering data for all sea turtle activity in Miami-Dade County beaches. And we're in sea turtle nesting season already. We actually have about 9 nests already. So sea turtle nesting season is April through October in Miami. So just a little bit about sea turtles. What exactly is a sea turtle? I know we have land turtles and tortoises and sea turtles. So just a little bit of information about what exactly a sea turtle is. So sea turtles are actually large air-breathing reptiles. So as a reptile, sea turtles lay eggs, they have lungs, and they have scaly skin. Their bodies and their flippers are remarkably adapted to spend their entire lives in the ocean. So sea turtles are actually going to spend their entire lives in the ocean. The only time a sea turtle is going to be on land is if it's a nesting female. So because sea turtles lay eggs, females will come up to lay their eggs on the sandy beaches, or if it's a sick or injured sea turtles. That's the only time you're going to find sea turtles on the beach. And of course, when the sea turtle babies hatch, they'll be underneath the sand and then they'll make their way to the water. Now, sea turtles have existed for 110 million years, so they have been around for a long time. But today, we actually only have 7 species of sea turtles worldwide. Now, out of all those species, they're all critically endangered, threatened, or vulnerable. So all 7 species are endangered or threatened. Here in the United States, they are protected under the Endangered Species Act. Sea turtles were actually brought to the brink of extinction in less than 200 years due to things like bycatch, huge fishing vessels with the large nets. They were getting trapped in their nets and they couldn't make it out. And since they breathe air, they couldn't make it up to the surface to get it to get some air. So unfortunately, they were a bycatch of that. And also, they were hunted or poached, and their shells were used for jewelry. So we actually saw a heavy decline in the sea turtle population in less than 200 years. And even though they're federally protected in the United States, and Florida is huge on sea turtle conservation programs, all the state of Florida has multiple sea turtle programs enforcing the rules and regulations for sea turtles, we are still seeing a loss of our population because they have a lot of threats facing them. Now, here's just some of the most common sea turtles you find in Miami-Dade County. So our first one is the loggerhead. Loggerheads account for 90% of our nesting here in Miami-Dade County. The next one is the green sea turtle. They account for about 5% of our nesting here in Miami. And then lastly, we have the leatherback, and they account for about less than 1% of our nesting here in Miami-Dade County. Now, Miami-Dade County is a critical nesting habitat for sea turtles. So all of Florida, on the sandy beaches, sea turtles come to lay their eggs. In Miami, this happens every single summer. And we see anywhere from 500 to 600 turtles come up, female turtles come up and lay their eggs. So when they do this process, sea turtles actually will come up in the middle of the night. So they want dark beaches to come lay their eggs because this helps them with predators and helps them see a little bit better, and they can actually find the ocean better if we have these dark skies. So what they do is female sea turtles come up usually in the middle of the night. Sometimes we have some early morning nesters, but usually it's in the middle of the night, and they'll actually lay anywhere from 80 to 180 eggs in one nest. After that, the eggs will incubate from anywhere from 45 to 80 days. And then the sea turtle babies, the hatchlings, will come up and then make their way back into the ocean. Now, how do sea turtles find the ocean? What's the cue that helps them know where they're at when they're coming up in the middle of the night? Well, sea turtles actually can see on land, even though they are remarkably adaptive for life in salt water. They can see when they're coming up on land, and they're actually looking for the brightest horizon, which should be the moon and the sky reflecting over the ocean. So that tells them where the ocean is. And this visual cue is completed by sea turtles actually able to compare this bright horizon with the dark dune systems. So once they understand the darker side, they know there's no ocean there, they're going to go towards the brightest horizon, and that's how they find the ocean. So dunes are really important because the dark, dense vegetation actually blocks out light. Now, sea turtles actually can see the electromagnetic energy spectrum. So that means the colors. So the reds, the oranges, blues, whites, greens, and lights, sea turtles can actually see. Now, this is where it causes an issue. Light pollution causes an issue with sea turtles. So light pollution or artificial light is a significant threat to our sea turtles here in Miami-Dade County and actually in Florida as well. So they're looking for the brightest horizon, but unfortunately we have these really, really bright white and colorful lights that the sea turtles are seeing, and they're getting confused on what exactly is the ocean and what's the dune. So they're actually going the wrong direction because with our big city bright, and you can see in this map right here to the left, Miami-Dade County is very bright with pollution, light pollution. So sea turtles are attracted to that shorter wavelength of light, so those whites in coloration, so they're actually going towards those lights instead of the ocean. Now, how does this actually harm a sea turtle? So what we call it, and what I'll call it from now on, is called disorientation events. So when a sea turtle gets confused, they disorient or misorient. So how does this affect a nesting female? Well, nesting females will come up to the beach in the middle of the night and they're looking for a suitable place to lay their eggs. So they're actually going to want to find a dark spot. But if we have the brightest horizon and all these bright white lights, then they actually might not lay their eggs. They also could get confused on where they are. So they actually might come up to the beach and not know where the ocean is. So they spend a lot of time trying to figure out where to go. And in this picture, you can see this is a sea turtle crawl. So this is a female sea turtle, and you can see usually sea turtles come up the beach and then they go right back down. But in this picture, unfortunately, the sea turtle had no idea where she was, and she just kept circling and circling and circling because she could not find the ocean. And unfortunately, she did not lay her eggs because she was so confused because we have all these big, bright white lights in our city. So she had no idea where she was. Now, unfortunately, she ended up in an outdoor shower. Our program actually found her, so she was released safely and healthy, but this is what we see due to lighting. They are getting so confused because they can't find the brightest horizon anymore, which should be the moon reflecting over the ocean. They're going towards the city lights and these bright white lights. Now, how does this harm the baby sea turtles? Well, when baby sea turtles, when hatchlings come up, they are, like I said, looking for the brightest horizon. But when they're coming up, they're actually seeing that this visual cue, the brightest horizon, is landward. So they're actually going the completely wrong direction, and they're very tiny. So they're getting stuck under beach chairs. We're finding them behind the dunes in the grass. This is a nest, and this is what sea turtle hatchling tracks look like when they've made it to the water. You can see all these little lines going right into the ocean. But unfortunately, in Miami-Dade County, this is what we're seeing due to that lighting pollution. We have anywhere from 80 to 180 hatchlings going every which direction. We have no idea where they're going, and they're just crawling because they're very confused, and they actually never make it into the water, unfortunately. Now, we do take our Miami-Dade County Sea Turtle Conservation Program actually takes data on this. So Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission actually has a running database of these disorientation events. So we actually take as much data as possible and send it to Florida Fish and Wildlife. And they actually have data that the public can view to see where our nests are disorienting. And this actually helps us identify where lighting pollution is the strongest. And you can see in this GIS map where these are all the disorientation events, and it's unfortunately very high, and it's pretty much all of our beaches in Miami-Dade County. But this is open to the public, so anybody can look through the data and see how many nests we have disorienting through the years. Obviously, we don't do it in real time because we have to go through it all. Now, is there a way to help with disorientation events with sea turtle disorientation events? Yes, there is. So Philip did mention some of them earlier. So keep it low, keep it shielded, keep it long is sea turtle friendly lighting. So this is what we're trying to get everybody involved with, and changing their lights and getting rid of this lighting pollution, which is the sea turtle friendly lights. So keep it low, keep your lights low to the ground, keep them shielded. We don't need lights up in the sky. And keep it long means the wavelength. So sea turtles are, like I said, attracted to shorter wavelengths, so which are the greens, the blues, and the whites. But they're actually not bothered by a red or amber coloration. So if you are on the beaches at night and you use a red, amber, or orange light, they actually won't get bothered by it, and they don't get confused. On top of using sea turtle friendly lighting, you can turn off your exterior lightings when you can. Write to officials for sea turtle safe lighting. And if you live on a beachfront property, make sure you close your curtains or blinds at night. I did want to touch base on this writing to officials. So what this means is there's actually sea turtle lighting ordinances in Florida that code enforcement will go out and tell people that they don't have the right lights for sea turtle nesting. Unfortunately, here in Miami-Dade County, we do not have a sea turtle lighting ordinance. But we have voluntary ordinances. So places like Golden Beach, Miami Beach, Sunny Isles, Surfside, and Village of Key Biscayne actually adopted their own sea turtle lighting ordinance, and code enforcement will go out and let people know, hey, this is too bright, or this is not the right light. But the rest of the municipalities don't have this lighting ordinance. So when I say write to officials, this is what I'm talking about. FWC and Sea Turtle Conservancy actually help with this. So if you talk to commissioners or the local government, you can actually steer them to Florida Fish and Wildlife. They actually have a model lighting ordinance that they'd be happy to give to local governments to apply this lighting ordinance into the counties. And Sea Turtle Conservancy has a ton of information, and they will help and actually help municipalities with bringing in sea turtle friendly lighting. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Leanne. It's bittersweet to hear what's happening, but also to know that we can make a change and do good things to save the turtles. So I'm going to be launching a quick poll. We just want to know how we did in teaching you all these good stuff. Just quick little 4-question poll. Number 1, what is light pollution? We have when too much light chemically pollutes our waterways, inappropriate use of natural light, light interference from the sun or moon, and excessive use of artificial light. Number 2, light pollution can affect bugs. This is a true or false question. Number 3, how can light pollution harm sea turtles? So it exhausts females while spending extra energy wandering on the beach. More noticeable to predators, unable to find their way back to the ocean, an increase in concentration of nesting on limited darker beaches, and then females returning to the ocean without laying their eggs. And number 4, only 5 of the 7 species of sea turtles are listed as endangered or threatened. Also a true or false question. So I'll give us 10 more seconds, and then after this we'll go into our Q&A panel. I'll give 30 seconds so we can have more people answer. Okay, I'll end the poll now, just in the interest of time. So I will share the results. Correct, light pollution is the excessive use of artificial light. And yes, it can affect bugs, true. How can light pollution harm sea turtles? The answer was actually all of them, but 100% said unable to find their way back to the ocean. That's probably one of the main issues that we're seeing. And then number 4, only 5 of the 7 species. That is false. It is all species of sea turtles are listed as endangered or threatened. So thank you. I'm glad that we were able to push all this knowledge onto you guys. And then now we're going to go into our panel. So we have a few questions that have come in on the Q&A feature. And I'll start off with, which I believe, Alejandro, you already put some of it in the chat, but you can verbally explain how we can support citizen science projects for the ISS images at night in order to get not only Florida, but maybe other locations as well.
Yeah, well, on that, I would like to say that we have all the resources to do Florida, for example, but sadly it's not. The truth is that we don't have the resources to, for example, to do what we used to do 4 years ago. No, so currently we have only running the lostatnight.org app. That is I put the link in the chat. But if you want to help spreading the word, you know, a donor, someone that could help on finance a better apps. From time to time, we run some crowdfunding campaigns because of that, because we don't have the resources. No, any volunteer work is welcome in translating the apps, translating the web page, and we work with a foundation in Europe. It's called the Stars for All Foundation. That is who manage our funds. Sadly, for the US people, you will not get tax reductions. But I don't know. Ask IDA. No, the problem is that I'm in IDA in the board, so I cannot get funds from IDA. No, but I think really spread the word. and contact us. No, there is work that anyone can do to help. There is one question that Philip, I think, wanted to answer, but I think I'm going to have better data than him. It's about how worse the light pollution is now compared to 10 years ago. I have to say, the problem is that we don't know. Yeah. And sadly, we don't know because we don't have a map from the ISS yet. Because the problem that we have is the nighttime satellite images that we have are not considering the blue light, and the blue light is critical for this. No, so I have a paper that we have tried to submit to very high-profile journals. We have not been successful to do that, mainly because the editors consider that light pollution is not important topic enough. I wonder if someone published it as CO2 global trend data will say the same, no? And 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But now it's happening with light pollution. No? Light pollution in many journals, top journals, is not considered a hot topic. And what I can advance you is that the minimum that we think is 40%, but probably can go up to 400%.
Interesting.
And mainly because of this, because we don't have the color information.
I'll just add, one of the things that's also happening, certainly in the United States, is that there's a shift in public lighting from sodium lights, which have an orange cast or yellow cast to them, to LEDs, which have a daylight spectrum. And daylight spectrum means a lot more blue light. So Alejandro's point is exactly correct. We likely have a lot more blue light pollution now than we had before. Even if the total lumens remained the same, the shift into the blue spectrum is going to cause a lot more biological effects.
Awesome, thank you. And then a big, I think, takeaway that I took is we need to make this this issue a well-known problem, so that way it can gain momentum within the communities and areas that it can take off in. So Phil, you did mention during your presentation a few of the ways that light pollution can affect humans, but what are your, in summary, what are your top serious consequences?
Basically, it disrupts sleep rhythms, particularly in children.
Okay.
A lot of kids like to have a nightlight on, and they shouldn't. It's just plain and simple. Your children shouldn't have a light on in the room. If you have any light, avoid the blue spectrum. Blue LEDs are getting more and more common. So, every time I have some little electronic device, it's got a blue LED on it. Those should not be in your bedroom, period. Put a piece of tape over them, stick them somewhere else. But avoid blue lights and avoid lights in the children's bedrooms. That's the most important thing you can do. And if you're having trouble with insomnia, be careful of your telephone, which has a significant amount of blue light. You can set the night shift on it so that after, say, 10 p.m., for instance, it shifts into the it shifts out of the blue spectrum. That may help.
Awesome. So
I wanted to add something else here, and the fact that Miami-Dade County does not have a sea turtle light ordinance, I think, is a big problem. And we have on our county commission somebody who really does love sea turtles, and I think we need to get her to sponsor a sea turtle light protection ordinance, or maybe somebody who is maybe not such a recognized sea turtle lover, but somebody else who can maybe earn some points that way. But if anybody's interested in promoting that to the Board of County Commissioners, I would be very happy to help them do so. So contact me about this if you're interested. Stoddard@fiu.edu, and I'll show you how to make it happen.
Leanne, any input?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I put a link in the chat that shows where the voluntary ordinances are, and it's an FWC site, so you actually can find the model lighting ordinance as well on there, and the real the data that FWC has posted in Miami-Dade County. So that's for everybody to look at, and if you want to, it'd be amazing to get the commissioners involved and do a Miami-Dade County to have a lighting ordinance. So all your tools are online. So I posted that in the chat.
Blessing. And so, Leanne, you may not be in the ideal position being a county employee to go petitioning your bosses. But if you would send me your contact information, maybe you can be a consultant for us.
Yeah, definitely. We love to go out to, in our parks, we always go out and talk about what lighting is good for the park system. So we definitely can educate you guys on what to do and who to contact. So I'll definitely send you my information.
I'm excited to hear that an initiative has come out of this webinar. Quite possibly. That's wonderful. Well, we are at 1:01, 1 o'clock. So I do want to launch one last poll, and it's basically just if you enjoyed today's webinar, how would you rate it today? So you enjoyed it, high five. There were some aspects you liked, but not everything. It was okay, could have been better. Terrible waste of time, which I hope not. And I prefer not to answer. And with that being said, thank you so much. If you need any more questions answered, I will drop my email address in the chat, so that way you can all send any unanswered questions, or if you are interested in helping with this potential initiative or whatever may come, whatever it be, any additional information, resources, you can reach out to me on that email. And it looks like 100% said that they enjoyed it. So that is wonderful to see. Thank you so much.